Before this video starts today, I just want to say thank you to our patrons, Nanani no Nora Paidrei. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. And let's go ahead and get today's video started. Hey guys, this video is all back in another Card Fight Vanguard deck profile. If you guys enjoyed, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and turn to the Patreon. Let's get started. Today we have Stoicheia, Magnolia, Set 4. So as you know, Magnolia being the first Grade 4 to be released, I probably should have done a deck profile on this one first. But I'm trying to go in order of trial deck releases, so yeah, Magnolia is getting revealed fourth. Now Magnolia, it was very interesting. It definitely set like the forefront for how the evolution was going to look, where they had upgraded versions of their previous skills, and that was pretty much it, except for Bruce, who technically didn't really do much of an upgrade. I mean, he got an extra Vanguard attack, and that was pretty much it. So the Magnolia, though, is really good. And I don't know if it's just Elder that did this, or if it's just the way I made the deck. But now, unlike before, and I kept the trigger lineup the same, but now, unlike before, where if my field got nuked, I was pretty much dead the following turn, unless they were at 5 damage and I had prepared for this with a Persona Ride, suddenly with Elder, I can make my board right back, even if all of it got nuked. I don't know how, if just Elder allows this to be possible. I don't understand how it happens. It's just Elder being a thing in my deck. I don't know, like, it's factors of luck, I guess, where my deck gets better if I have Elder in it. I don't know. So let's go ahead and get this deck started, shall we? First up, we have our starter in Sylvan Horned Beast Lotte. Grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 6k base, auto when wrote upon. If you win second, draw a card. Nothing too special about it. Standard starter skill. But you know, you run this because, hey, it's a Sylvan Horned Beast. You want Sylvan Horned Beast in the deck. You run Lotte because he's just so cute. Who doesn't want this on their starter? If you don't want this as your starter, you're a horrible person. This is our starter. Over Trigger. Source Dragon Deity of Blessings, Blessfavor. 5k power, 50k shield, grade 0 with boost. Over Trigger, you may have one Over Trigger in your deck. When it a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose one of your units, it gets plus 1 mana for the turn. If you're during your draft check, activate additional effect, which is draw a card, choose one of your units, gets plus 1 crit. All of your front one gets plus 10, and if your damage zone has the same number of cards as your opponent's or more, choose a card from your damage zone and heal it. So basically an everything bagel. You get the 1 million guaranteed and your draw regardless if you drive check it or damage check it. But then if you drive checked it, you get every little trigger except for a stand trigger out of this. And if it gave you a stand trigger, Stoicheia would be broken, especially the decks that could turbo this out back into deck. So, Blessfavor is a really good over trigger. Some people would argue running Obari in this deck, especially because with Elder in it, your rear guard's no longer going to hit for bigger numbers. And I do understand why you would run Obari, and I completely agree. If you want to run Obari, go for it. But I prefer Blessfavor because, you know, it's one thing if they can, because if they giving 2 million to one unit or 1 million to 2 units, it's just blockable by PGs, and the other attacks are very minuscule to the point where they don't really matter much unless one of said cards that was at like plus the million was the bear that can just share power. So that does not really matter that much compared to Blessfavor. And while the 1 million is fine and all, you have like an ability that is hard to keep up with because you get the front, so automatically everything in the front row swinging for Persona Ride numbers again. You get the crit on someone, so now pressure's a thing. You get a possible heal and you get another draw. Alright, I prefer this over trigger. If you want Obari, you can run it, but I prefer this one. One copy. Our trigger lineup, we run 3 copies of Sylvan Horned Beast Valin, 4 copies of Sylvan Horned Beast Planar, and 4 copies of Sylvan Horned Beast Jackalope as our triggers. Yes, we run Rainbow. Now, all of you are going to say, why am I not running the effect triggers when literally all 3 of these have effect triggers? Here's why. None of the effect triggers are Sylvan Horned Beast, and that's why I don't run them. And if you call me stupid for that, feel free to, but I want to let it be clear. This deck, it does have a loss rate, but its wins far outrank the amount of losses, and considering what it goes against, or like what I feel like is impressive because it just keeps going against field nuker decks or stuff like Greedon, which isn't really that hard because if you early rush Greedon, Greedon's just dead. But point is, if I can win with the trigger lineup without using triggers with effects, you have no right to criticize me on not running triggers with effects because the deck honestly works. I mean, it might just be my playstyle, but it honestly works without the triggers with effects, and I prefer it this way. And then we have a 4 heal in Sylvan Horned Beast Zlatorog, because why not run the 4 heal? But yes, we run the crits for pressure, draws to get hand cards, and fronts to just get power to front row. And then our last card before we get on to our normal units, or the normal grade 1 and higher units, are normal order, grade 0, Wild Intelligence. Play it by counterblasting 1, discard 3 cards from top of your deck, choose up to 1 card from your drop zone with the same grade as your Vanguard or lower, call it to rear guard, and if your Vanguard is Sylvan Horned Beast King Magnolia, choose up to 2 instead of 1. So if you're on the grade 4, you don't get to call 2, you just get to call 1, but you literally can call anything from your drop zone at that point. But you know, if you're on Magnolia and you're doing this for the early rush, you can make 2 rear guards out of it. And honestly, it's really good Wild Intelligence. It's kind of like the thing with Urger, where people say, and Leonard, where people say you can't use them to their full abilities because if you put the grade 4 and because their grade 4s are different names. And while that is true, if you time it right, it doesn't really matter, and the grade 4 would actually make them better. Like, I'm a testament to that statement. Leonard and Bruce, Magnifico over there. Like, no one refuses, no one wants to take Leonard anymore because they know Bruce is a thing. And Urger has literally been the saving grace of all of my counterblasts. Like, it only matters if you time it wrong. But I've played the decks enough to where I know how to time it right, and I know how to take advantage of it. So, if you can time it right, do it. If you don't want to run them because maybe it requires too much time or maybe it requires too much, like, setup play for it, don't do it. But I prefer this just because, you know, get you aboard slightly. So 2 copies of Wild Intelligence. 4 copies of our PG and Planar Prevent Dragon, our first grade 1, 6k base, grade 1 boost, 0 shield, continue Sentinel, you have to 4 Sentinels in your deck, and auto when it's placed on guard circle, choose one of your units that cannot be sent into battle, and if your hand has 2 or more cards, just choose a card from your hand, discard it. Standard PG, nothing too special about it. If you don't know what that means, it basically means if this and only one other card is in your hand when you would play this, you don't have to discard anything, which is really nice, especially for this aggressive base deck where, for some reason, this is the deck I spam that PG ability a lot in. I don't know if that's something to go off of, but that it is the deck that happens the most in, but honestly, the PG helps. I wish it was a Sylvan Horn Beast, not because it's searchable, because you can't search Sylvan Horn Beast unless they make a card in the future that allows you to, but I just wish it was Sylvan Horn Beast for reasons. So 4 copies of Planar Prevent Dragon, though, because it's a good PG. Next up, we have our grade 1, or last grade 1, and the grade 1 of the ride line, 2 copies, 1 in the ride deck, 1 in the main deck, of Sylvan Horn Beast Charis. 8k base, 5k shield, grade 1 with boost. Auto when it's rolled upon by Sylvan Horn Beast Lattice, you may reveal the top card of your deck. If it is a grade 2 or less unit card, call it to rear guard. If it isn't, put it to soul. The amount of times that skill bites me in the ass, even before I ran Elder, is just so funny, because the max I ever had in terms of grade 3s in main deck was 6 at a time, and every time I would use this skill, or like 95% of the time, I would see specifically a Magnolia, and on very few occasions I would see the elephant. I don't know why Charis hates me, it's just what it does, and the other times I will always see a trigger. There have been 3 times where I've actually seen units that I wanted to call, like the grade 2s or grade 1s. Every other time has either been a trigger or a grade 3, for some reason. And then continuous back row, rear guard circle. During the battle, the attack gets plus 5k power. So really good with Magnolia, with either of the 2 Magnolia skills, or anything that gives this back row attack, it immediately gives it plus 5 regardless. So that means this thing is swinging for 18 to somewhere, and also that's really good. I love Cheers for that. Free card, good ability, 1 in the ride deck, because you need a grade 1 in the ride deck, and 1 in the main deck. And that is unfortunately all of our grade 1s, but honestly, like, there is the Lemur that we could run as a grade 1. If you're wondering why I choose not to run the Lemur, it's not because I didn't test it out, it's because I did test it out, and I didn't like it. 1, because like it felt like the deck was becoming too counterblast heavy once I put the Lemur in, and then I wouldn't be able to use emergency cards like Wild Intelligence just to get me a free call, even if I was on Elder, and other cards in this deck that cost counterblast, and it was eating up my Magnolia turns if I had to sit on Magnolia. So I don't really like Lemur for that reason. I admit it's a good card in terms of power gaining, but like it doesn't fit me at all, and it kind of was hurting me more than helping me. Now if you want to run it at a 2 over 3 of, but I'm personally not going to run it because it just didn't work with me. Our first grade 2 is Sylvan Horn Beast Panthero. 9k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto, when it's placed on rear, Soul Blast 1. Choose 1 copy of itself from your drop zone and call to an open rear guard circle. And auto rear, when it attacks, if your Vanguard is Magnolia in its card name, so it can be both for the grade 4 and the grade 3, gets plus 5k for the battle. Now, you're wondering why I only run this at 2. It is because, like, the soul thing has become a problem, because Elder can call stuff out of soul, but you need a Magnolia either in soul or on board to use the ability to get back row attack to everyone. And I typically like to keep my other spare Magnolias in hand as PG fodder or final turn calls, and I'm not going to call one to board if I don't have to. So I don't like to constantly soul blast for no apparent reason. So like that's why he's at a lower number, but also because you can just fetch 1 from drop, so it doesn't really matter. Like if 1 ends up in damage, just heal it out, and then just the other one's in hand, and then you know the 5k power, it's free. So who wouldn't want this? 2 copies. 2 copies of Sylvan Horn Beast Gabregg, 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto rear, when your other unit in the same column as this unit attacks, Soul Blast 1, it gets plus 10 for the turn, and choose all of your opponent's rear guards for the battle that this unit attacked. Your opponent cannot call cards of the same grade as the chosen units from their hand to guard circle. So basically, your Soul Blast 1, it's only going to ever get plus 10 unless you manage to restand the unit in the same column as it multiple times, but that means this thing's hitting for 20. And 20 is pretty good, and then it also can possibly restrict PGs, grade 2s. I mean, most of the time everyone has like a grade 2 and grade 1 on board, so it's really good to restrict those. In the late game, they might have a trigger on board, so yeah, Gabregg is a really good card. Not for the early game, I think, unless you've been memorizing what's been going into their hand, but for late game, he's a really good finisher, and I'm willing to use Soul Blast on the boy, so 2 copies. 2 copies of Sylvan Horn Beast Damainaru. Now, a lot of you are going to give me shit for this one, like how I rent intelligence, but also, I want to let it be clear, like I said with intelligence and Urger, timing matters. If you time this right, this is literally the thing that will kill your opponent, because I have done it multiple times. 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept, auto when it's placed on rear guard if your vanguard is Sylvan Horn Beast King Magnolia, so it cannot be the grade 4. Soul Blast 1, choose one of your rear guards until end of turn and can back row attack, and it gets plus 5. So you can give it to Charis, gets an 18k swing. You can give it to this thing and make it a 15k swing, and then you can just Magnolia this thing, and then it becomes a swinger from back row. And then auto rear once per turn when it's chosen by your Vanguard's ability gets plus 5. So once more, only useful with the old Magnolia, because the new Magnolia gives everyone the plus 5 and doesn't target. So still really good. Literally, this thing in an early rush is like the death to my opponent, because I always have like 2 counterblasts. I use one of them on Mag, I use one of them on the Bear. This thing comes out, gets really helpful, literally gets me 5 attacks in the first turn. They're pushed to either 5 damage, 4 damage, and dropped a lot of hand cards. Like, all around, Damainaru is really good with the early game. If you don't run him in your deck, because after the early game, after you ride to grade 4, all of his skills are useless, don't run him, and run the Lemur instead. But I prefer this, because Soul Blast, while it might be a slight problem in this deck, with the way this deck goes, I have just enough Soul Blast to get what I want. And Lemur, combined with the Gun and Sola, made me a bit too counterblast heavy, so I chose to take out the Lemur because it was getting uncomfortable using that much counterblast in one go. So 2 copies of Damainaru. Then we have 3 copies of Sylvan Horn Beast Linbur, 9k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept, continuous back row rear guard circle. All your back row rear guards get plus 2 for the turn. Or, sorry, all of them just get plus 2. And that includes during your opponent's turn, and it includes itself. So if one's in the back row, they get 11. I mean, this thing's an 11k base. All of your grade 2s are more or less like 12k bases. And you have 3 of these in the back row. All 3 of them become 15s, and that's really helpful because, you know, it adds pressure. And if you put Elder on, or like you Persona Ride a Magnolia and give these all plus 5, they're all swinging for 20. All around, Linbur is really good. A nice, easy setup card in the back row, because typically all your back row swingers have an extra skill cost. So, you know, just having a free card that makes them hit for slightly better numbers, it's just a really good card to have in the back row. So 3 copies of Linbur, because he's free and he can possibly help someone. 3 copies of Sylvan Horn Beast Gun and Sola. This thing is the death to everything that fights it. 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept, auto back row rear guard circle. When it swings, counterblast 1, choose one of your other rear guards, and it gets this unit's power until the end of turn. Increase the power at the time. So this thing's at 15, which most likely it is, because anything that can give back row attack gives an extra plus 5. Then the unit that got this gets plus 15. So like, say it was Damainaru, who already also got back row attack from, let's say it was on regular Magnolia turn. So this thing's at 20 on its own, plus 15, 35. Yeah, your opponent's going to have a hard time blocking these. And you can stack triggers on this. You can stack over triggers on this. For the love of God, this thing is BS. This thing makes numbers annoyingly big, and if you get an over trigger with it, if you use Albari with this deck, and you get an over trigger, you put this on, and you put one of the millions on this thing, your opponent has to deal with at least 3 attacks that are over 1 million. Gunasula is an amazing grade 2. There's no reason not to run him. 3 copies. 3 copies of our last grade 2, which is Sylvan Horn Beast Giraffina. Or technically not our last grade 2, but the last grade 2 in the main deck. 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto when it's placed on your back row rear guard circle. It can be back row center, it can be the other 2 back row rear guards. You may have this, you get plus 10 for the turn, and if you do, it cannot move to other rear guard circles to end of turn. So it's meant to counteract that one, like, Neo-Nectar looking card that can allow you to change rows as well, which is BS, and I still never ran it because, once more, not a Sylvan Horn Beast. But, you know, this thing's pretty good. It's a 20k swinger, and you combine it with Magnolia. That's a 25k swing from back row at the start of the turn. So honestly, like, this thing's really good, and you don't have to use the old Magnolia for this. It can work with both Magnolias. All around, this thing's amazing, and hits for numbers, 3 copies. 1 copy of our last grade 2 in the grade 2 of the ride line, Sylvan Horn Beast Lattice. 1 copy, and it only goes in the ride deck. 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto when it's rolled upon by Sylvan Horn Beast King Magnolia. Soul Blast 1, reveal the top card of your deck. It is a unit card. You may call it to rear guard circle, and if it isn't, you put it to your hand. Okay, unlike Charis, who just screws me over and sends the card to Soul, at least this one goes to hand, so I'm not losing too much out of it. So that's fine. And auto back row rear guard circle. When it attacks a Vanguard, Soul Blast 1, it gets plus 10 for the battle. So 20k swing, but if it's attacking from back row, once more, it's probably a 25k swing. You typically don't get this out of Soul until you go for the Elder turn, where you use Elder skill to call something from Soul, and then that's typically when you call Lattice, and then you get a final kill with it, so you can get multi-attacks out of it. All around, Lattice is really good. Get you a possible power swing when you eventually do call him out of Soul, and he can give you a unit and then not send it to Soul. I'm looking at you, Charis, when his skill goes off. So 1 copy of Lattice. Grade 3 time. 2 copies of Sylvan Horn Beast Elrante, or Elrante. 13k base, grade 3, 200 Persona Ride. Auto rear guard when it attacks. If you have 2 or more units in your front row, or are in front of this unit, I'm assuming that means it can still be in the front row. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that means it can still be in the front row. Otherwise, it just means it has to be in the back at all times. It gets +5 for the battle. And if there are 3 or more soul charge 1, okay, for that one, you actually do have to put in the back row. So a way to get soul, which is really nice to kind of counterbalance the soul problem a bit, and a way to get +5. Honestly, I don't really use this thing as much as I should because I just constantly discard it for discard fodder, and his ability never goes off because by the time I call him, my opponent's already dead. Like, this elephant would do so much if I actually called him. But either way, it's an 18k swing for free. It gets you a soul. There's no reason not to run it at least 2, so 2 copies. 3 copies, 2 in the main deck, 1 in the right deck, of our main grade 3. I say main grade 3 because elders are grade 4. Sylvan Horn Beast King, Magnolia. Grade 3, 200, Persona right, 13k base. Auto Vanguard, at the end of the battle that attacked. Counterblast 1, choose one of your rear guards because until end of turn, that unit can attack from back row and gets +5. If you Persona row, choose 3 rear guards instead. So, first off, let's debunk that skill. It doesn't have to attack a Vanguard for it to go off. It can attack a rear guard, which is really good. It allows for versatility in that. Counterblast 1, if we had a counter charge, I would run it, but it's still pretty good. And you can pick a unit, gets +5. Okay, you pick Damainaru in the early game. Boy swings for 20 from back row. Presumably, this he's on the field. Something else got back row attack too, so you got 2 back row attackers in that turn. And if you Persona Ride, you pick 3 units instead, and your whole front row already got the +10. And you can also give the power to units in front row too. It doesn't say pick a unit in the back row. It just can attack from back row if you pick a unit. So, 3 copies of Magnolia, really good. You still want to get those Persona Rides even if Elder's in the deck, just to kind of, you know, in case you can't ride Elder, you can at least do multiple attacks with Magnolia. So 2 in the main deck, 1 in the right deck. Speaking of Elder, our last card in the deck, and our main grade 4 and the main boy of the deck, Sylvan Horned Beast Emperor, Magnolia, Elder! Grade 4, triple drive, 13k base. God, I love this thing. Auto, when it's placed on Van, choose a card from your soul. You may call it to rear guard. You get a free ability. You can literally call this. You can call this if it somehow ended up in soul. You can call this, which you most likely will, just to get numbers. You can call Charis, just to say, if I can find Charis. You can just call Charis, just to say, fuck it. You can do whatever else entered to the soul from Charis' skill. All around, maybe that's really good. And then continues Vanguard. If you have 1 or more cards in your soul or on rear guard with Magnolia in their card names, it can be himself. It can be the grade 4. Grade 3. Hell, it can be the grade 0 that they're eventually going to make, because I know they're going to do it. All of your rear guards can attack and intercept from back row, and they get +5. So, to make that clear, they do not gain intercept. They can intercept from back row. So, for example, if Charis is in the back row, unless you give him intercept via another skill, he cannot intercept. But, you know, all these guys can, and that's kind of why I'm able to survive so much against, like, field destroyer decks, just because, like, they don't typically destroy all of my field, and that's what ends up killing them, because I can just intercept with everything. And, you know, the +5, that's permanent. That is straight up a permanent during both players' turns, which means all of your rear guards are incredibly harder to hit, and they can still attack from back row. All around, that is a really good skill, because even though Damainaru effectively uses now, this is a constant 15, this is a constant 14. If it's in the back row, it's a constant 16 along with anything else in the back row. This is a constant 15. You get the point. Honestly, this thing is amazing. You run it at 4. Even if it doesn't have Persona Ride, you get triple drive. And for some reason, every time I use triple drive, I see crits from it. I don't know. I don't know what started happening. I get 1 more drive check. It's not even the 3rd drive check that gives me crits. It's just the drive checks in general give me crits now. I don't know why triple drive gives me crits now, but it does. So 4 copies of Magnolia Elder, because it's an amazing grade 4. You want to run this at the max you can, because it's, in my opinion, one of the better grade 4s. So 4 copies. And that's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. Honestly, when Magnolia first came out, I didn't like it. It was like Nirvana, where I didn't think I would use it as much. And honestly, at least Nirvana, I knew I would have main Dragon Empire. I didn't think I would do anything with Stoicheia. And then Magnolia slowly grew on me. And then Elder came out. And then suddenly I loved the hell out of this deck. Because what I hate about rush decks is that they die to, like, especially like the rush decks that can go fill a board really quickly, they typically die to field nuke decks. I'm looking at you, Eugene, and you too, Gravidia. We all know what you two are capable of. So that's normally why I hate rush decks, or decks that can call a board. But Magnolia, even in its weakest form, which is quote-unquote like this deck in terms of other people's opinion, but this deck works best for me, it can still make a board back even after your field is nuked and go for the game in that same turn. All around, Magnolia is a fun deck, really powerful one, hits for numbers, it's very terrifying, and yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, down to the Patreon, join Discord, follow the Twitch, and I'll see you all next one. Don't forget to stand up your vanguards.
Thank you.